They never show you the smell on TV. Blood smells like copper and rust, sure, that's what everyone says, but when it's baked into the drywall, soaked into the carpet, and left for a few days under heat, it smells like something that should have stayed inside the body. Sweet, sour, rotting, like a memory turned septic. Anyway, that was my job. I cleaned up after the worst days of people's lives. Murders, suicides, unattended deaths. You'd be surprised how many people die alone and aren't found for a week. Or maybe you wouldn't. I wasn't in it for the gore. Hell no. I needed the money. My sister needed surgery. Insurance was crap. I was 24, broke, and desperate. A buddy of mine, let's call him Richie, got me into it. Said it paid well if you didn't mind guts and grief. You won't believe what you could stomach, he told me once, chewing on a gas station burrito as we stood outside a place where a guy had blown his head off in the bathtub. He was right. But there's one job, just one, that I think about every damn day. I don't talk about it much. It's the one that made me quit. Not because of what I saw, but because I think someone saw me. And I think they're still watching. It was a Wednesday, mid-September. Still hot in the Midwest, the kind of sticky heat that made the Tyvek suits cling to your skin like saran wrap. We got the call around noon. Small town 2 hours out. Single wide trailer in the woods. Supposedly a standard job. Woman in her late 40s, lived alone, hadn't been seen in over a week. Neighbor called it in. The coroner had already come and gone. Body removed. We were just there to clean up what was left behind. From the moment we pulled in, I knew something was wrong. Richie was driving. We came off a gravel road, surrounded by woods that felt too quiet. The kind of silence that's not peaceful, more like the air's waiting for something. The trailer was slumped at the edge of a clearing, one wheel off its blocks. A plastic sun-faded pink flamingo lay in the weeds, half melted. No police tape. No nosy neighbors. Just us. Richie muttered, "Place looks like a meth lab, not a murder scene." Unattended death, I reminded him, reading from the clipboard. Neighbor said she had a smell coming through the woods. Figured it was a dead raccoon until the flies started showing up. He grunted. Hell of a raccoon. We suited up, grabbed our gear, and headed in. The door wasn't locked. Just sagged open with a creak that made my skin crawl. Inside, the smell hit us like a brick wall. You never get used to that smell. It's like your brain goes, oh, that's what death smells like, and tries to eject itself from your skull. Richie swore under his breath and pulled his mask tighter. The living room was dark. All the blinds were drawn and the power was off. I flicked my flashlight on and panned it around. First thing I noticed, the place was too clean. I don't mean tidy, it was cluttered with junk, but it didn't look like a place where someone had just rotted away. No visible stains. No pools of blood. Just piles of books, knickknacks, dusty furniture, and a cracked fish tank with no fish. But the smell told us something had died here. Richie headed toward the back room, muttering about checking for seepage under the floorboards. I moved toward the hallway where the stench was strongest. That's when I saw the first one. A Polaroid tacked to the wall with a rusted thumbtack. It was of the living room, this living room, but something was off. The angle was high, almost like it was taken from the ceiling. There was no furniture in it. No books. No clutter. Just a woman standing in the center of the room staring up at the camera. Her eyes were rolled back in her head. Below the photo, someone had scrawled in red ink, "She didn't listen." I felt a chill go down my spine. "Richie," I called, trying to keep my voice steady. "You need to see this." No answer. I walked further down the hall, stepping over a collapsed stack of VHS tapes. The smell was unbearable now, like it was coming from inside the walls. I reached a door at the end bedroom, probably, and pushed it open. What I saw inside still haunts me. The room was almost empty, except for a stained mattress on the floor and dozens, I mean dozens, of Polaroids. They were taped to every surface. Walls, ceiling, even the floor. All of them showed the same woman from before. But in each photo, she was in a different stage of something. Decomposition? Ritual? Some showed her asleep. Others with her eyes open. Then others with her mouth gaping, eyes gone, limbs tied to the bed. In one of the pictures, she was sitting in the corner of the room, smiling. Her mouth stretched too wide. Way too wide. Her eyes were completely black. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a bucket in the corner. Inside it were used Polaroid cartridges, stacks of them, greasy and curling at the edges. Someone had been here, taking pictures. After she died. Or maybe before? I turned to run, but the door slammed shut behind me. And I swear to God, I heard a camera shutter click. I spun around. Nothing. No one. Just that same silence pressing in like wet cotton. I yanked the door open and ran straight down the hall. I nearly bowled Richie over in the living room. "Jesus, dude," he said, grabbing my shoulder. You look like you've seen a ghost. I think someone's here, I whispered. There are pictures. Everywhere. Of her. He frowned. The body. No, her. Like someone was watching her. Or living here. Or, I don't know. It's sick. I think they're still around. Richie raised an eyebrow and peeled off his gloves. There's no one here, man. I checked the whole damn place. Nothing but trash and mold. I heard something I said too loud. He looked at me for a long second and then sighed. All right, let's finish up and get the hell out of here. I was fine with that. We bagged up a few biohazard materials from the back room, cleaned the air vents, scrubbed the floor in the hallway even though there was no visible stain, and disinfected every surface like clockwork. But the whole time I felt watched. Like there was a fourth wall behind my head that I couldn't turn toward. I kept imagining the flash of a camera, the mechanical whine of film being ejected. As we were packing up, I glanced back at the hallway wall. The Polaroid I saw before? It was gone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the pictures. The angles. How could someone have taken those without being noticed? Some were from inside the bedroom. Some were above the bed, like from the ceiling. But the most disturbing? Some were from the hallway, which meant someone had opened that door while she was alive, taken her photo, closed it again, and repeated that dozens of times. Was she tied up? Drugged? Willingly posing? I don't know. Around 3 a.m. I heard a knock at my door. Sharp. Mechanical. 3 taps. I live alone. I checked the peephole. No one. But on the floor outside, sitting dead center on the welcome mat, was a single Polaroid. Still developing. I picked it up with shaking hands. It was a photo of me, standing in that bedroom, staring at the wall of pictures, mouth slightly open, eyes wide, and in the background, just over my shoulder, was a shape, blurred, humanish, with a crooked neck and a hand raised like it was about to touch me. I didn't feel it. I didn't hear it, but it was there. That's when I realized something chilling. I never told anyone what I saw in that house, but someone already knew, and they wanted me to know they were watching too. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in my kitchen with every light in the house on, staring at the Polaroid like it might change if I blinked long enough. It didn't. Same image. Same me. Same crooked, blurry figure behind my shoulder. Same timestamp in the corner, 2:17 a.m. Which I realized was the exact time I left the trailer. Someone had been in there with me. Or worse, someone took that photo from inside my head. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe Richie was messing with me? Maybe he took the picture on a hidden camera as some kind of twisted joke? But that didn't make sense. The photo had my perspective, the exact position I was standing in. I remember looking at that wall of images, mouth open, frozen. The image in the photo looked just like that memory, which meant, no, that's impossible. But nothing about this was possible. I should have called the cops. But what was I gonna say? Hi, yes, hello. I clean blood off walls for a living, and now I think a ghost mailed me a cursed Polaroid. Help? Yeah, they'd be real helpful. Instead, I did what any millennial panic attacked into sleep paralysis would do. I called Richie. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. He didn't show up to the warehouse the next day. That was our HQ, a rented space on the edge of town where we stored hazmat gear, tools, disposal drums, the whole setup. He wasn't there when I got in. Didn't answer texts. Didn't even leave a message on the board like we always did after a shift. Just gone. I told myself he was probably sleeping off a hangover or avoiding the stench of that last job, and I wouldn't have blamed him. But something gnawed at the back of my mind. Something I hadn't thought about until now. Richie hadn't seen the Polaroids. I called again. Voicemail. Again. And that night? Same knock at the door. 3 sharp, mechanical taps. No one outside. Just another Polaroid on my doorstep. This one was worse. It was my bedroom. Empty. Just the bed, unmade, with the closet door open, even though I never leave it open. The timestamp read 4:03 p.m. I had been at work when that was taken. Someone had been inside my home. I called the police this time. What else could I do? The officer who showed up was polite. Tired, mid-40s, looked like he had 6 hours of overtime in his back pocket and just wanted to go home. I handed him the photo, explained everything, even the job at the trailer. He listened, nodded, didn't write much down. There any sign of forced entry? He asked. No. Anything missing? Damaged? No. Alright, probably just a prank. You got any enemies? Ex-girlfriend maybe? No, I said too fast. And what kind of ex breaks into a guy's house to leave artsy horror shots? He gave a little shrug, like maybe that was above his pay grade. You got a camera? Doorbell cam. Just got the basic deadbolt, I admitted. Well, I'd suggest getting a cam or two. Record everything. If it happens again, give us a call. Until then, there's not much I can do. He left. I watched his taillights vanish down the street. That was the last time I trusted the police, because that night things escalated. I was sleeping or trying to. The anxiety meds hadn't kicked in yet, and I kept feeling like the shadows in the corner of my room were leaning in a little too close. You ever get that feeling where your brain tricks you into seeing a silhouette in your peripheral? Except this time, I didn't blink it away. It was there. A shape, human-shaped, tall, motionless. In the corner of my room between the bookshelf and the wall. I stared at it so long my eyes burned. Didn't move. Didn't vanish. I couldn't tell if it was real, or if my brain was short-circuiting from exhaustion and fear. I pulled the covers over my head. Yeah, like a damn child. But I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe right. The air felt thick. Not just from heat, but like the room itself was pushing in on me. Like gravity had tripled. And then I heard it. Click. Just one. The camera shutter. I tore the blankets off. The room was empty. The corner was empty. I jumped out of bed, turned on every light, searched the entire house. Closets, under the bed, behind the water heater. Nothing. But when I came back to the bedroom, there was a new Polaroid. On my pillow, it was me, sleeping, taken from the foot of the bed. Timestamp, 3:12 a.m. I screamed, not even ashamed to admit it. I screamed until my throat cracked and I threw up in the bathroom. Then I sat against the tub and started crying. I hadn't done that in years. Not since my dad died. But something about this being watched, stalked, invaded, it brought me back to being 10 years old and helpless. I didn't sleep that night either. The next day, I got a text from an unknown number. He's not dead, just changed. No contact, no name. I froze. My first thought was Richie. I called again. Still no answer. Drove to his apartment. Knocked. Nothing. Looked through the windows, blinds closed. His car wasn't in the lot. That's when I did something I shouldn't have. I broke in. I won't say how, but let's just say we learned a few tricks doing crime scene work. I jimmied the back door and slid inside. It smelled like old pizza and air freshener. A cheap one, the kind they use in public restrooms to mask something worse. The place was dark. I flicked on my flashlight. That's when I saw the pictures. Polaroids, lining the walls, the fridge, the hallway. Dozens of them, maybe more. But not of Richie. Of me. Sleeping. Driving. Walking through the warehouse. Sitting on the couch. They were all from different angles, different times. Someone had been following me for days. Weeks maybe. My head started spinning. My hands went numb. And then I saw it. The last photo on the wall. It was a picture of Richie. But not the guy I knew. His face was blank. Eyes gone. Lips split in a jagged smile too wide for his skull. And behind him, that same figure. Crooked. Blurry. Shadowed. The only word scrawled beneath it. Now he sees too. I don't remember driving home. All I know is that I locked every door, pushed furniture against the windows, turned off all the lights, and sat in the center of the living room holding a crowbar. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Why won't you smile for us? I turned the phone off, pulled the battery, smashed it with the crowbar. Didn't matter. The knocking came again. 3 sharp, deliberate taps. I didn't answer, didn't move, just held the crowbar tighter and stared at the door until the sun came up. When I finally opened it, there was no photo, just a message, scrawled in thick red ink across my door. You are the subject now. I called in sick the next day. Didn't go to the warehouse. Didn't shower. Just sat in silence. Every time the floor creaked, I flinched. Every time a shadow shifted, I turned my head too fast. Around noon, I finally got a voicemail. From Richie. His voice was off. Slurred. Like he was doped up or drunk or something much, much worse. I saw it, man. I saw what she saw. You think it's a camera, but it's not. It's a mouth. It's feeding on us. The pictures, they're just bait. Keeps us watching, keeps us remembering. Don't look anymore. Don't let it in. Then silence for 15 seconds. And then he whispered, "If you get a picture of your eyes open, it's too late." That voicemail was 2 days ago. I haven't left the house. I boarded up the windows, killed the power. No electronics, just candles and a notepad. No more photos, no more clicking. But last night I had a dream. Richie was there, standing in my living room, smiling. His mouth was open, too wide. Something was inside, wriggling like a shutter, clicking over and over, taking photos from behind his teeth. And he said, "Smile." I woke up screaming. This morning, I found a Polaroid under my door. It was blank, but the timestamp, it's from tomorrow, 3:06 a.m. I haven't seen the sun in 3 days. Not since I covered the windows and doors with plywood, black trash bags, duct tape, anything I could find. The outside world has no place here anymore. Light is the enemy. That's what I've come to believe. Because the photos, the ones they keep sending, they're always brightest right before the horror shows up. There's something about the light. It's not natural. It looks like sunlight, but it doesn't behave right. It flickers like a fluorescent bulb in a gas station bathroom. Pulses sometimes. I swear I've seen shapes inside the beams when it hits through a crack. Something moves in it. Something watches. And now I think it's inside the walls. After that last Polaroid, the blank one with the timestamp from the future, I made a decision. Couldn't run. Couldn't sleep. And I sure as hell couldn't go to the cops. I had to make my house into a bunker. A tomb if necessary. I unplugged everything. Covered mirrors. Ripped my smart TV off the wall and threw it into the backyard. Same with the microwave, the toaster, even the smoke detectors. Anything with a lens or a sensor had to go. I put every camera I owned into a pillowcase and smashed them to pieces with a hammer. Even my phone, the backup one, I kept hidden in the closet. I didn't care if it was off. Didn't trust it. Anything that could watch me had to be destroyed. And still, I get the Polaroids. They slide under the door, fall from the ceiling. One time I found one inside a cereal box, unopened, factory sealed. How do you explain that? And worse, they're getting closer. The photos used to show me from across the room or from behind. Now they're inches from my face. The last one was from inside the bathroom mirror. Except the mirror's gone. I broke it last night. So how? I've tried to piece together what this thing is. Is it a person? A stalker? Some kind of tech glitch? A spirit? At first, I thought it was connected to the woman in the trailer. The photos on the wall. Her corpse. Maybe we stumbled into something that wasn't meant to be found. A serial killer's lair or a ritual gone wrong. But this feels bigger now. This doesn't feel human. The Polaroids stopped being just images. They started becoming instructions. The first time I noticed it, I almost missed it. One of the pictures had my face, sure, but my eyes were looking off to the side, toward the hallway closet. I don't remember looking there when the photo was supposedly taken, but the angle was weirdly specific. My expression, too. It looked almost hopeful. I thought maybe I'd find something if I opened it. Something helpful. What I found was worse. Inside the closet, behind the coats, taped to the drywall with yellowed masking tape, was a note. Not my handwriting. I swear to you, I've never written these words. He's still in the walls. He only comes out when you forget he's there. Underneath, in shaky block letters, stop looking directly at him. You'll wake him up. I backed away so fast I tripped over a shoe and fell on my ass. You'd think I'd rip that note down, right? Burn it? No, I taped it to my chest. I wanted to remember. I wanted to not forget, because apparently forgetting is what this thing wants. And sure enough, the next photo that slid under the door, my face, asleep. The note, gone. I started testing myself, leaving notes around the house, writing things on my arms with Sharpie, like that movie Memento, except way less cool and way more sad and terrifying. One time I wrote, "Don't trust the photos on my bathroom mirror with lipstick." The next morning, it said, "Don't trust the mirror." Same handwriting, same smudged corners, except I hadn't touched it, and that mirror had been broken for 2 days. So where the hell was the writing? Whose lipstick was that? Richie still hasn't been found. I looked it up, went full Reddit detective mode. No police report, no missing persons bulletin, nothing in the papers, like he was erased. I even drove out to the trailer again, during the day this time, fully expecting to see it condemned or torn down. But when I got there, gone. Just a patch of bare earth where it used to sit, like it was never there at all. But here's the kicker. On the ground, sticking out from the dirt like a gravestone, was a single Polaroid. Sun-faded, curled at the edges. It was me, holding a shovel. Behind me, Richie was on his knees, face blank, mouth open, staring straight into the camera. I don't remember the photo being taken. I don't remember going there with a shovel, but the treads in the dirt matched the ones on my boots. Now let me tell you what happened last night. I was sleeping in short bursts, sitting upright in the kitchen with a baseball bat between my legs and my head nodding forward every few minutes. I kept hearing shuffling sounds, like dry paper dragging across hardwood. Sometimes it was soft, like something crawling behind the walls. Other times it sounded like whispering, not words, just syllables, breath patterns, mimicry. At around 4:15 a.m. I woke up with a jolt. The house was quiet, too quiet. I sat there, trying to remember why I was scared. Something felt off, but I couldn't place it. And that's when I noticed. The Polaroids on the fridge, the ones I had pinned up as evidence, were gone. All of them. I stood slowly, and that's when I heard it. From behind me. Click. I spun around and there it was. The light, pouring in through the slats in the boarded windows. But not golden. Not warm. It was white. Pure surgical. The kind of light you only see right before anesthesia kicks in. And there was a figure in it. Not fully visible. Just a silhouette. Long arms. No face. Its hands were twitching like they were adjusting a camera lens. I grabbed the bat and lunged forward. The light vanished. The room went dark. And I was alone. Except now there's a new photo on the fridge. It's me, holding the bat, staring into the light. Behind me, the figure, reaching out. The timestamp? Tomorrow, 3:15 a.m. It's happening again. Every day I wake up in a slightly different place. I put the bat down on the floor, I wake up with it on the kitchen table. I nail a chair to the door, wake up, chairs on the other side of the room. And the pictures are changing. They don't just show me anymore. They show other people. My sister, Richie, a woman I dated briefly last year. All of them have their eyes closed, except in the most recent one. That one shows me, with my eyes open, staring directly at the camera, smiling. I don't remember that smile. I don't remember taking that picture, but I keep it close now. I study it, hoping for some clue, hoping maybe I'll catch a detail, a message, something that tells me how to beat this thing. But here's what scares me most. Every time I look at it, that smile gets a little wider. Tonight, I'm going to do something reckless. I'm going to take a picture. I dug out an old disposable film camera from a box in the attic. No screens, no connections, just a shutter and a roll of film. I don't know what I expect to see. Maybe I'll catch it in the flash. Maybe I'll see nothing at all. But I have to try something, because the light is coming through the cracks again. And this time, I swear I can see it. Not the figure, the face. It's my face, but wrong. Like someone else is trying to wear me. I took the picture. I didn't plan it out with some cinematic countdown or inner monologue. It wasn't dramatic, just a moment where I couldn't take the waiting anymore, where the silence in my home became louder than any scream. The kind of moment that happens when your own reflection starts to look like it's studying you. So I raised the old disposable camera, pointed it at the hallway, the one leading to my bedroom where the light always seems a little too bright at night. And I pressed the button. Click. The flash went off. And in that split second of blinding light, I saw it. Not clearly. Not like you see a person on the street. It was more like seeing something move under the surface of a frozen lake. A shape massive and wrong just beneath the surface of the world I thought I understood. And it had eyes. Dozens of them. Human in the sense that they looked like mine, but wrong in the way they looked back. It wasn't staring at me. It was watching me watch it. Like I'd just broken some unspoken agreement. I dropped the camera and ran. Didn't even check if the photo took. I slammed the hallway door shut, barricaded it with a chair, a table, my own shaking body. Then I sat there in the dark kitchen, eyes locked on the thin line of light under the door, waiting to see if a shadow passed over it, waiting to hear a footstep, a whisper, another click, but nothing happened, at least not right away. After a few minutes of silence, a silence that felt hungry, I finally dared to pick up the camera. The film still needed to be developed. It hit me then, something so obvious I felt stupid. This wasn't a Polaroid. I'd used a disposable, which meant whatever I'd caught on film wouldn't be visible immediately. No instant confirmation. No turning it over and seeing a blurry horror staring back at me. That terror would come later, if it came at all. I had one last photo left on the roll. That's how close I'd come to using it for nothing, one final chance. One more exposure. I told myself I'd save it. Save it for when I really needed proof. But part of me whispered, the tired part, the part that had lived in fear for too long, that maybe it would be better if the last photo never got taken. No last photo, no final chapter. Just silence. The next morning, I ventured out. Daylight had returned to something resembling normal. I don't mean it was comforting. Just less aggressive. No flickering, no strange pulses. No silhouettes. But I didn't trust it. I wore sunglasses, a hoodie, kept my head down like I owed the sky money. There's only one place in town that still develops film. A pharmacy on the edge of the old downtown strip. The kind of place with faded signs and aisles of off-brand soda no one buys. The guy at the photo counter didn't ask any questions. He was a teenager, probably high. I handed him the camera and filled out a slip. 1 hour, he said. Cool, I mumbled. Then I sat on a bench outside and watched the shadows. Exactly 63 minutes later, he came back with a small envelope. Here you go, he said. Weird batch. One of them came out all white, though. He paused. Actually, not white. More like overexposed. He handed it to me. I almost didn't want to open it. I almost walked away and threw the whole thing into the nearest dumpster. But you know I didn't. I took it back to my car, locked the doors, turned the envelope over, and slid the photos out. The first 6 were normal. Well, normalish. Me sleeping. Me in the bathroom. Me sitting on the kitchen floor, most likely taken while I was unconscious or in one of those missing time states I've started having. Nothing new. Still terrifying, but familiar now. Like flipping through crime scene photos from your own murder. Then I found it. The hallway photo. The one with the flash. And let me tell you, the camera did catch something. But it's not what I expected. The hallway was lit up like a stage, the flash reflecting off the hardwood. And in the center of it, just barely visible, but definitely there, was a shadow. Human in shape. Arms longer than normal. Head tilted at a sick angle. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is it had my face. Twisted. Melting. Like someone tried to sculpt my expression out of candle wax, then left it too close to the flame. It was smiling. Wider than should be physically possible. And in its hand? A Polaroid. Of me. I dropped the photos, heart pounding. Had to open the window and suck in air like I'd just escaped drowning. I don't know how long I sat there before I noticed something else. The photo. It had a timestamp, but not on the back like a traditional film photo. No, it had a digital-style timestamp like a red LED burn-in imposed over the corner of the film itself. 6:13 p.m. Which wouldn't be weird. Except I took the photo at 8:12 p.m. the night before. Meaning, it hadn't happened yet. I rushed home. My brain ran loops the whole way. What if this was a warning? What if 6:13 was when it would become me? When it would switch places? When it would wear my skin and walk out the front door while I stayed behind, trapped in the walls? I got home at 5:47. Every light on. Doors locked. Baseball bat in hand. I stared at the clock. 5:51. I paced. 5:56. I held the photo like it was a holy relic, like it could protect me from whatever was coming. 6 o'clock. I stood in the hallway. The one from the photo. No sound. No light tricks. No whispers. 6:09. My heart was racing. Sweat down my back. I kept checking over my shoulder like I expected something to come charging out of the floor. 6:12. I raised the photo. Lined it up with the hallway. My knees went weak. It was exactly the same. The pattern on the floor. The light. The angle. Except now. I wasn't holding a camera. I was holding a Polaroid. And the timestamp on that one? 6:14 p.m. It was a switch. A loop. Somehow I had already taken the picture, or I was about to. The moment had already happened. Was happening again. Or never stopped. And the me in the photo? He was holding up a photo of me, holding a photo of him, holding a photo of me. On and on. like a mirror into a mirror into a mirror. I felt something crack inside my head. Then the lights went out. The rest is harder to explain. I don't remember passing out. I just remember the sound, not a crash or a bang or a scream. Just film winding. Over and over. A mechanical rhythm. Like the entire world was trying to reload. I woke up on the floor. No photo in my hand. No camera. But there was one new Polaroid on the wall. Different from the rest. It showed me curled up on the hallway floor, unconscious. And behind me? A hole in the wall. Circular. About the size of a camera lens. Looking straight at me. That hole is there now? I went back and checked. Moved furniture. Pulled down an old clock that had hung there since I moved in. The wall is smooth. Painted over. But when I press my ear to it, I hear a faint whirring. And sometimes just barely. Click. There's a hole in the wall behind the clock. It's not visible. Not in the traditional sense. The drywall's smooth. Undisturbed. But I know it's there. I know because sometimes when the house goes still, I press my ear against that exact spot and I hear it. Whirring. Soft and constant. Like an old disposable camera halfway through winding the film. Like breathing through machinery. A rhythm almost biological. Sometimes it stutters. Click. 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 And when I hear that, I know I've been photographed again. I started marking the wall every time it happened. Little red excess in Sharpie. There are 47 now. I only remember 4 of them happening. That means 43 moments of my life, my consciousness, were stolen while I wasn't even aware I was missing. That's the part that messes with me more than anything. The intrusion, the stalking, even the nightmares, those are bad. But knowing that I can't even trust my own memory? That's a special kind of hell. It makes you doubt everything. How long has this been happening? Weeks? Months? What if it's been years? A few days ago, I woke up in my bathtub. Fully clothed. Water running. Freezing cold. No memory of how I got there. I climbed out, slipped twice on the tile, and stumbled to my feet like a drunk. I looked in the mirror out of reflex, immediately regretted it. There was a note taped to my forehead. A literal piece of paper scotch taped between my eyebrows like some sick joke. My handwriting. Don't open the fridge. I laughed. A brittle, half-insane bark that echoed off the bathroom walls. And then, like a good little puppet, I went straight to the kitchen. Because of course I did. The fridge was humming when I approached it. The low kind of hum that you feel in your teeth, like a tuning fork in your jaw. I hesitated, because now I could hear it behind the hum. Something wet, shifting. A faint slop of something heavy dragging across linoleum. I opened the door. There was no food inside. Just Polaroids. Stacks and stacks of them. Hundreds. Thousands maybe. They were stuck together in clumps. Warped from the cold. Some frostbitten, others damp, some brand new, still developing. And every single one was me. Sleeping. Standing. Screaming. Holding knives. Holding a gun. Holding a phone with no cord. Holding other Polaroids. I pulled out a handful and flipped through them. In one, I was standing outside the trailer, the first one. The one from the job. But behind me was a second figure, blurry, out of focus, with a hand on my shoulder. In another, I was digging. Somewhere deep and wet. Mud maybe, maybe not. There were bones around me stacked like driftwood. And I was smiling. And then one more. It was me sitting exactly where I was now. In front of the fridge. Looking into it. But this time something inside the fridge was looking back. Not a reflection. Not my eyes. Something else. Eyes like camera lenses. Multiple. Blinking. Adjusting aperture. And in the corner of the photo, scrawled in red. You already let it in. That line did something to me. It unlocked a memory I didn't know I had. I staggered back from the fridge, fell against the counter, and sat there breathing hard. My eyes stung. My hands were shaking. My brain buzzed with static like I was trying to tune into something just beyond hearing. And then it hit me, not a thought, but a sensation. A full body memory, like deja vu with teeth. There was a time, I don't know when, where I took something into my house. Something I thought was harmless. Something I invited. It wasn't a camera. It was a gift. A black box. Smooth. No labels. Delivered in plain packaging. I think. I ordered it. Why would I do that? I tore through the house like a maniac. Closet. Attic. Under the bed. Nothing. But then I looked in the crawl space. I hadn't opened it in years. Not since I moved in. There was no reason to, just insulation and dust and maybe a rat or two. But the door creaked open on its own. I swear. And inside, sitting on the dirt like it had been waiting for me, was a box. Black. Unmarked. My hands moved before I could think. I opened it. Inside was the camera. Old school, Polaroid, leather strap, heavy and cold. Except the lens wasn't glass. It was an eye, not a metaphor, not a symbol. A real, living eye set into the front of the camera. Humanish but reptilian around the edges. It blinked when I touched it, and then it took a picture. The flash went off in my face. I screamed and fell back. The world went white, then red, then black. When I came to, the camera was gone, but in its place was a single photo. Still developing. This time, it wasn't of me. It was of you. Let me explain. You're sitting there, reading this right now. Right? Wherever you are, phone, laptop, desktop, I want you to stop and take stock of your surroundings. The window to your left. The mirror across the room. The reflection in your screen. Check them all. Because the photo I'm holding is still developing. And your face is starting to come into view. I don't know how it's possible. I don't know what rules this thing obeys. But I've started to believe this was never just about me. This thing, the watcher, the photographer, whatever you want to call it, doesn't feed on attention. It feeds on recognition. The moment you see it, it sees you. That's why it hides behind the flash. That's why the Polaroids are warnings, not trophies. Every image is a sliver of its world bleeding into ours. Every picture is a portal, a tether. And the more people who look, the stronger the tether becomes. There's something else I found. A note in the crawl space written on the back of an old photo. Handwriting again, mine, but more jagged. Desperate. It reads, "Stop writing. The more you tell, the closer it gets." Below that, scrawled in blood or something like it. "But if you don't write it, you'll forget." That's the trap. Keep telling the story and it spreads. Stop telling the story and it devours you in silence. No memory. No evidence. Just gone. Like Richie. Like the woman in the trailer. Like all the others whose photos are now decaying in my freezer. So what do? I keep writing. I keep remembering. Because the second I forget what's real, the second I question what's mine, I become one of its pictures. Another image on its wall. Another twitch of the shutter. That's what happened to Richie. He looked into the lens. He smiled. And the photo smiled back. I'm going to seal the crawl space again. Maybe burn the box. Maybe not. But I know now that it's inside the walls. Watching. Listening. And printing. The Polaroids still come. Under the door. Through the vents. Inside cereal boxes, coat pockets, even behind my eyelids when I blinked too long. They all say the same thing now. Just one word. Closer. I've been afraid to sleep. Not just because of the thing in the walls. Not because of the Polaroids that show me in positions I don't remember, mouths open, eyes black, limbs limp like a doll's. Not even because of the whispers that creep in around 3 a.m. soft as breath against the skin. No, I'm afraid to sleep because I might not wake up as me. And I think that's what it wants. It started with a dream that didn't feel like mine. In the dream, I was standing in a hallway I'd never seen before. Not mine. The wallpaper was peeling pale yellow with tiny blue flowers. A hospital maybe. Or a care home. There was a smell too. Urine, bleach, something worse. I walked. My footsteps were silent, but the lights above buzzed as I passed under them. One by one, they flickered out behind me. I stopped at a door. Room 237. Of course it was. I reached for the handle. The moment my fingers touched the cold metal, I woke up gasping. There was something in my hand. A photograph. It was me standing in that exact hallway. Room 237 behind me. And in the foreground, blurry and too close, was someone else's hand reaching for me. The perspective was all wrong, like I was being watched from inside the photo. Underneath, scrawled in pencil. He followed me back. I'm sorry. I didn't write that. At least, I don't remember writing that. But that's not the part that keeps me up. The part that keeps me up is that the handwriting wasn't mine. It matched the note I found weeks ago, the one that said, "You already let it in." And it matches every message on the Polaroids since. Which means someone's been here before me. Someone who knew how this ends. And they left breadcrumbs. I started digging. Not metaphorically, literally. In the crawl space. Behind the insulation, under the floorboards. I followed the hum of the camera eye, that mechanical flutter behind the drywall. I smashed through beams, cut through cobwebs. My hands bled. My lungs filled with dust. And then I found it. A lockbox. Old. Metal. Rusted nearly shut. I pried it open with a crowbar and found. Asterisk dozens of Polaroids. Asterisk a worn cassette tape labeled "Do Not Watch." Asterisk a letter. Folded. Yellowed. Stained with something brown. The letter began with 4 words in all caps. If you're reading this. My hands shook. I read the rest under flashlight, crouched in the dirt like a grave robber. Here's what it said word for word. If you're reading this, then it's already inside your house. It doesn't matter how. It doesn't matter when. If you've seen the first Polaroid, it knows you now. It doesn't need your permission anymore. I'm sorry. I tried to stop it. I tried documenting it like they told me. But that's what it wants for you to watch. For you to remember. The more attention it gets, the more it understands. I thought I was helping people. I thought I was warning them. But it was learning through me. It doesn't just watch. It becomes. It starts by copying you. Harmless things, your posture, your voice, your expressions. Then the Polaroids begin to change. Then the gaps in time. Then the dreams. And then it takes your place. I haven't left the house in over 4 months. Not because I'm scared to. Because I don't know if I'm me anymore. If I leave, it will leave too. And no one will know. Burn this box. Burn your pictures. Whatever you do. Don't listen when it starts to speak in your voice. I dropped the letter and threw up. Right there on the dirt. Couldn't help it. Because I'd already heard it. 2 nights before, I thought I was going crazy. I was in the kitchen, standing in front of the boarded up window. And I heard someone call out from the hallway. My voice. Not similar, exact. Hey, it said. It's okay now. You don't have to fight it. I didn't answer. Just gripped the bat tighter and backed into the pantry. It walked past me. The silhouette, tall and flickering, arms too long, head crooked like it had dislocated a neck trying to be human. And I heard it whisper again like a record skipping. I know what you see. I know what you see. I know what you see. The box held more secrets. The Polaroids, they weren't just of me. Some were labeled. Dated. 1974. Subject. Wallace 1986. Subject. Janet 1993. Subject. 2001. Subject. Marcus 2014. Subject. Riley. Failed. All of them looked like people caught mid-thought. Some crying. Some laughing. Some gone. Just empty rooms. But one series of photos chilled me more than anything else. They weren't of victims. They were of it. The watcher. The photographer. Whatever it is. You could barely make it out, always behind glass, behind water, behind reflections. Sometimes it was watching from a window. Other times from inside a mirror. Once in the reflection of an eyeball in extreme close-up. But always the same features. Asterisk human-like frame. Asterisk head tilted unnaturally. Asterisk smile too wide. Asterisk camera lens where the face should be. I saw it clearly for the first time. And I realized, it doesn't wear your face. It replaces it. I wanted to destroy the box. I really did. But I couldn't stop myself from playing the cassette. I found a tape recorder in a thrift shop I'd forgotten in the garage. Plugged it in. Sat in the dark and pressed play. A man's voice came on, weary, raspy, distant. Here's what I caught, transcribed exactly. Test 12. Day 47. I've stopped counting the photographs. They move when I'm not looking. I can't throw them away. They just come back. Sometimes with new messages. Subject still active. I've started referring to it as the lens. Not a creature. Not a demon. More like a virus. A meme with a body. Spreads through imagery. Through recognition. I destroyed the mirrors. I closed the windows. But it found another way in. Through people. My neighbor came by yesterday. She said she saw me mowing the lawn. I haven't been outside in 2 months. Click. The tape ended. That night, I received a new photo. Slipped under the door like all the others. But this one was different. It wasn't of me. It was of my front door. Closed. Normal. But in the window, reflected faintly in the glass, me, staring in from the outside. I don't know how long I've been sitting here now. I think the gaps are getting longer. I wake up in new clothes. I find messages on the wall that vanish when I turn the light on. And this morning, my phone turned on by itself. Despite the battery being removed and the screen shattered. It lit up once. Just long enough for a single notification to appear. A calendar reminder. Switch scheduled. 4:44 a.m. It's 4:41 now. I can hear something walking down the hallway. Same pace as mine. Same weight in its steps. Same cough I had last week. It knocks once, twice, 3 times. I'm writing this as fast as I can, because I don't know if the version of me that comes back from this will be me. If you're reading this, you know now, you've seen it. Maybe it hasn't sent the first photo yet. Maybe it's still watching. But once the first one arrives, it's already too late. You're the next subject. Like me, like Riley, like all the ones who came before. I left the house for the first time in weeks. I know what you're thinking. Why would I ever leave? After everything. After the photos, the copies, the messages, the click behind the walls. After learning I might already be a puppet halfway replaced. But you have to understand, the idea of being taken over is terrifying. But the idea of being forgotten, that's worse. And I knew I was losing myself. I could feel it. Words felt harder. My handwriting had started changing, each day loopier and less like mine. I'd read my journal entries and couldn't remember writing a single line. My own reflection looked tired, then off, just slightly, but I saw it. So when I found the name in the tape box, an address scribbled on the inside flap, I took it as a sign. It was a place, a real one. Pine Hollow, WV Cabin 6, Grange Road. Scrawled like a final breath. I packed a bag. 3 photos. A knife. My journal. 1 flashlight. No camera, no phone. No mirrors. No glass. No screens. And I drove. Pine Hollow isn't on Google Maps. At least, not anymore. There's a blotch of green forest where it should be. A no-data square surrounded by mountains. But I used a paper atlas from a gas station and found the road barely marked, a broken sign leaning sideways like it had given up. Grange Road. It wasn't really a road. More like a snake of gravel and roots, choked with branches, overgrown and wet. It felt like it hadn't been driven on in years. Maybe longer. The forest pressed in from both sides like it wanted to swallow me. My ears popped. The air got colder. Time got slow. I was 19 miles from the nearest town. No signal. No turning back. The cabin sat alone in a hollow of trees. Rotten. Tilted. Half sunken into the earth. The porch had collapsed in the middle and the front door hung open like a broken jaw. But the moment I stepped out of the car, I knew it was the right place. It felt like walking into a memory I'd never had. Familiar. Wrong. I approached slowly, one hand gripping the handle of the knife in my jacket. The door creaked as I stepped inside. And I saw the photos. They were everywhere. Taped to the walls. Nailed to the beams. Hung from strings across the ceiling like the world's worst Christmas decorations. Thousands of them. All Polaroids. Most yellowed, some fresh, some wet. It was like standing inside a corpse made of memories. And every photo was the same subject. The photographer. The watcher. The lens. Some of them were blurry, distorted by light. Others sharp enough to make my stomach turn. Close-ups of its hands, not human. Veined, gray, knuckled like old tree roots. Or its face, always a smooth, blank surface with a lens embedded in the middle. But some of the worst ones showed people. Children. Old women. Men in business suits. All staring at the camera. And all of them had the same face. Mine. I screamed. I think. Or maybe it was just a gasp. The kind that echoes in your skull and doesn't come out right. I turned to leave, heart slamming against my ribs, but my foot struck something. A trunk. Half buried under a collapsed shelf. I knelt down and brushed away the debris. The lid opened easily. Inside was a book. Thick. Leather. Moldy. I picked it up and realized it wasn't a book. It was a catalog. Each page had a photo pasted in the center. Beneath each a date. A location. A name. Some names had excess through them. Some didn't. Some had nothing left at all, just black smears where ink should be. Like the names had been erased, not forgotten, but consumed. I flipped until I reached the most recent entry. A blank page. No photo. Just my name. And today's date. I dropped the book. Ran outside, gasping for air, I scanning the trees for movement. The forest was still. Quiet. Too quiet. I turned to run back to my car and froze. There was a photo on my windshield. Held there by a knife. I pulled it free with trembling hands. It was me. Standing in the forest. But in the background, high in the trees, a shape. Perched. Watching. Upside down. Like a bat with a camera lens for a face. I drove without thinking. Branches clawed at the windows. The gravel spat under my tires. I didn't stop until I hit asphalt again and my lungs stopped rattling. I drove until I saw people again. Towns. gas stations, street lights, civilization. Only then did I look at the photo again and realized something new. In the lower corner, handwritten in blood brown ink. You're not the only one. That night, I checked the journal again, the one from the box, and I found a page I swear hadn't been there before. It was written by someone else, different pen, different tone. It read, I found the house too. You're not crazy. It's real. It started there. Or maybe it ends there. I think it's trying to find a perfect version of us. A host it can keep. All the others broke down too fast. But not you. You're stable. You document. You remember. That's what it needs now, a witness. A curator. And it's making you one. I can't stop shaking. Because that word, curator, it appeared again in a photo I found this morning. A new one. Slipped under my pillow. It shows me standing in a room with red walls, surrounded by hanging photographs, holding a notebook, smiling. My face is blank, like the others. And underneath, just one word. Curator. I think I understand now. It doesn't just feed on identity. It feeds on memory, on being seen, documented, stored. And once you've gathered enough for it, enough images, enough recognition, it wears you like a suit. And uses your name to spread the story. To start over. Somewhere else. To someone new. So now I have a choice. I can keep writing this. Keep spreading it. Pass the infection along in the hope that maybe, just maybe, someone finds the pattern in time to fight it. Or I can stop. Go silent. Let it take me. And hope it starves without an audience. But I don't think it will. Because I think. You're still reading. I woke up in a different house. Not metaphorically, I mean that literally. I went to sleep on the couch in my living room, the same couch I've bled on, cried on, written on. The same room I boarded up, where I destroyed all the mirrors, where I fought back against the thing in the walls. And when I opened my eyes, I was somewhere else. The air smelled different, dustier, more chemical. The ceiling was too high. Wooden rafters instead of popcorn tiles. There were pictures nailed into the beams. Not hung, nailed. Hundreds of them. Just like the cabin in the woods. And none of them were of me. The first one I saw showed a man with burn scars covering half his face. He was crying into a bathroom sink. The timestamp was from 1981. The next was a young woman holding a baby. Her mouth was open in a silent scream. Behind her, the baby's face had been scratched out. Then came the old man standing naked in the snow, surrounded by a ring of empty chairs. All of them looked afraid. And in all of them, somewhere, if you stared long enough, you could spot it. The watcher. The lens. Sometimes in reflections. Sometimes peeking around a corner. Once inside a mirror worn like a mask. It's never the subject. Always the observer. Always there. I stumbled through the house. It felt like a museum and a mausoleum all at once. Every room a different era. Every hallway disjointed, like time had folded in on itself and stitched together architecture from across a century. In one room, the wallpaper was 1960s orange paisley flaking off to reveal 1800s plaster. A Victorian chandelier hung above a rotary phone that rang once when I walked in, then fell silent. I called out. No answer. But something was moving behind the walls again. Only this time, it didn't sound like crawling. It sounded like film unspooling. I found the bedroom last. If you can even call it that. The bed was just a bare metal frame. On top of it, hundreds of Polaroids were pinned directly into the mattress, forming a shape, a spiral. Each photo was blank, but as I stepped closer, the center of the spiral began to develop. Slowly, like watching a bruised bloom underskin. And the image that appeared was me, standing in this exact room, looking down at the spiral, photo in hand. I dropped it, backed out of the room, heart racing, as darting for exits that weren't there. None of the doors led back to where I started. I opened one expecting the hallway, found a basement staircase instead. Another led to a small room filled entirely with TVs stacked on top of each other, playing different versions of my life. In one, I was a child again, eating cereal, but the reflection in the spoon was an adult version of me crying. In another, I was in my current apartment, but every surface was covered in photos. Even the ceiling. And the camera was slowly zooming in behind my head. The final screen showed this room, the one I was in now. And the back of my head. I turned fast. Nothing there. But there was a new photo. Lying at my feet. I picked it up. It was the same image I'd just seen on the TV, me in this room, holding this photo, turning around. And in the window behind me. A face pressed against the glass. Smiling. I think this house is every house. Or maybe it's none of them. A place stitched together from the memories of all the subjects before me. A holding space. A gallery, somewhere between the beginning and the end. And I'm not just the exhibit anymore. I'm becoming the curator. I found a table in one of the rooms, one I don't remember walking into. On it was a book, a guest book. At least, that's what it looked like at first. Each entry was signed, each name followed by a date, some of them centuries old. The handwriting grew more erratic the further I went, more desperate, until the words weren't names anymore, they were screams. Then, beneath all of them, a final line. Curator, subject 128. Status unstable. And underneath that, replacement in progress. I touched the ink. It was still wet. I ran to the nearest mirror. I knew better. I didn't care. What I saw wasn't a reflection. It was an archive. My face flickered like old film, frame by frame, showing different versions of me. The kid version. The teenager. The man I was 2 months ago. The man I was yesterday. And then, not me. The face held too long. Smile too wide. Eyes that clicked instead of blinked. And when I raised my hand to the mirror, he didn't move. I smashed it. Shards clattered across the floor. And on each shard a different face. All mine. All not mine. I screamed. Kicked them away. And then I saw the new Polaroid. It hadn't fallen from the ceiling, or slid under a door. It had developed directly on the wall, like the house had printed it from inside its own bones. It showed me curled in a corner, eyes rolled back, camera in hand. And below it, a new caption. Welcome, curator. I don't think this is a haunting anymore. I think it's a job offer. I think the house, the thing, it selects people like me. People who are alone. People who are broken. People who remember too much. Who write, who document, because that's what keeps it alive. Stories, images, witnesses. And once you've seen enough, once you've been infected enough times, it hands you the lens and asks, your turn. But I haven't said yes. Not yet. I found a room that doesn't seem to belong. No photos, no mirrors, no sound. Just 4 walls, a floor, and a chair. There's one item on the chair. A camera. Old, familiar. But the lens is closed. It hasn't opened yet. It's waiting for me to pick it up, to take the photo, to begin again. I don't know how long I've been in here. There's no clock, no windows. The Polaroids outside the door are still shifting. New subjects now. A woman in a park, mid-laugh. A man at a funeral, face blank. A child asleep in a classroom. None of them me. Not yet. But maybe soon. Unless I give the camera to someone else. Not physically. Digitally. Because here's the truth. Every story you've read, every word, it's a photo. Frozen, captured, shared. Every time you imagined the hallway. Every time you pictured the watcher smile. You took a step into the house. You brought it closer. And maybe that's the point. It's not about the house at all. It's about expansion. A virus made of images. A predator made of observation. And now that you've seen it, you're part of it. I've been in this room for what feels like days. No time, no clocks, no windows, just the chair, the camera, and the walls that never echo. But I know something is changing because the camera, the one that was lifeless when I entered, has begun to breathe. That's not a metaphor. It inhales. The lens pulses every so often, dilating like an eye after the lights go out. I can feel the suction of air around it, like it's preparing, clearing its throat before it speaks. I haven't touched it, but I can feel it inside my head, showing me things I haven't seen. Or maybe things I've forgotten. It started with dreams. Except, they weren't mine. I dreamt of a woman named Catherine who worked the night shift at a photo lab in 1987. She started getting strange rolls of film. Photos of herself brushing her teeth, sleeping, walking to work. Then her family. Then her dreams. She disappeared in June. I dreamt of a man named Marcus who collected found Polaroids in flea markets. He built a wall in his basement, a shrine. Until one night, he took a photo of his wife and she didn't appear in it. Only him, standing behind her. Marcus died of a stroke, but the autopsy found a lens where his left eye used to be. The dreams are feeding me now. Histories, case files. The camera wants me to know I'm not the first. That this has been happening longer than anyone realizes. That every time someone tells the story, writes it down, whispers it over a campfire, uploads it to a blog, it spreads. And somewhere, in some quiet room like this one, another curator is chosen. Another lens is opened. I tried to destroy it. The camera. I picked it up and instantly a wave of static crashed into my skull. My teeth ached. My eyes blurred. It felt like every memory I had was trying to leave me at once, like someone had opened a drain in my soul. But I held on, lifted it over my head, slammed it against the concrete. Again, again, again. On the fifth strike, the shell cracked. But inside, there wasn't film. There wasn't metal. There was skin. Wet, pulsing alive. The lens blinked. And then it spoke. Not out loud. It used my own thoughts. Hijacked my inner voice. Twisting it. You know the thing where you hear your own voice narrating as you read? That subtle mental tone? Imagine it shifting. Deeper. Slower. Smiling. This is what it said. You see now. You all see eventually. We are not watchers. We are collectors. Curators of consciousness. Archives of the fragile. You offered yourself the moment you remembered the first photo. You were already looking back. I screamed. I screamed and something else screamed with me from behind the walls. A chorus of images. The cries of people frozen mid-flash, their lives turned to film, their souls compressed into stories and captions. I clawed at my skin, searching for seams. Convinced I'd find a zipper at my spine and underneath would be film strips, not organs. That I'd bleed pixels, not blood. But I didn't. I was still me. Wasn't I? The camera lay on the floor, cracked, leaking fluid. The lens was twitching. And in my hand, a photo. Still developing. It was me. But not me now. A future version. Older. Worn. Hollow-eyed. Standing in a room of endless drawers, labeled and cataloged, a library of lives. Photos on every wall. Thousands. Millions. And every one of them whispered the same word beneath their breath. Next. I ran. Through the door. Out of the curator's room. But the house had changed again. It always does. Now every hallway had a mirror. Not glass reflections made of photos. Entire walls formed by stitched-together Polaroids. I passed one and saw myself taking a step I hadn't taken yet. I passed another and saw myself falling. And when I passed the last mirror, I saw myself at the end. Mouth open. Eyes blank. A camera for a head. Clicking. 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 I stopped running. Because I realized something. If this was the archive, the gallery, the final exhibit, then there had to be an exit. A real one. Not the metaphorical, give up and let the monster take over kind of exit. But a choice. The lens or the frame. I made it back to the room. The camera was whole again. I don't know how. Maybe it always is. Maybe that's the trick, it can't be broken. Not physically. Only by choice. By refusing the frame. I picked it up. It didn't fight me this time. No pain. No static. Just a question burned into the back of my eyelids like an afterimage from a flash. Who do you want to remember? I thought about Richie. About the woman in the trailer. About the other subjects, Janet, Wallace, Marcus, Riley. About the viewer. You. Everyone who sees becomes part of it. Everyone who watches feeds it. The stories we tell aren't just warnings. They're invites. But they can also be resistance. So I aimed the camera. At myself. At the reflection in the wall of photos. And I said, no one. Then I clicked the shutter. The flash went off. And for a moment, a beautiful, searing moment, I saw everything. The house as it truly was. Not wood. Not brick. But film. Winding endlessly. A structure made of memory. Corridors looping into loops. Stairs made of photographs. Doors that open into moments. And the thing behind it all? Not a monster. Not a demon. Just a machine. A collector of souls in snapshots. Running on attention. It didn't want blood. It wanted witnesses. And I was its curator. Its recorder. Until I said no. The flash ended. And the room went dark. Truly dark. No more whispers. No more clicks. Just stillness. When I woke up, I was back in my house. The real one. Same couch. Same boarded up windows. The photos were gone. All of them. The clicking had stopped. The hole in the wall was sealed. Even the entry in the curator's book erased. Like I'd never been part of the archive. Like I declined the offer. But I keep the camera on the shelf now. Just in case. It hasn't blinked. Not since that night. But sometimes when I walk past the mirror, I see something behind me. Just for a second. Not a shadow. Not a shape. Just a single red line of text at the bottom of the reflection. Subject declined. Searching for new viewer. They say stories live forever. That once something is told, written, seen, shared, it becomes real in a way nothing else can. Immortal, even. But what if they're wrong? What if we can end a story? Not just stop telling it, but strip it of its power? What if we bury it, you and me, together? That's what this is now. My last entry. My last confession. My final page in a book that should have never been opened. Because I've finally learned the one thing that matters most. The lens doesn't create anything. It just reflects what we choose to see. For the last 2 nights, the house has been quiet. No photographs under the door. No tapping in the walls. No new faces in the mirror. The silence isn't peaceful, it's anticipatory. Like the moment before the curtain rises. Or before the shutter clicks. But I know better now. I know it's waiting. Because the watcher doesn't chase you. Doesn't claw your window or scream through your vents. It invites you. It lets you build it. With every picture. With every retelling. With every terrified share. You made it real. So did I. We gave it structure. With our attention. With our fear. With our fascination. But what if we stopped looking? What if we turned away? That's what I've been testing. In the past 48 hours, I've done something I should have done weeks ago. I gathered every photo in my house, the Polaroids, the prints, the ones I took, the ones that appeared. I burned them, one by one, and I didn't watch them curl. That part matters, because it wants to be seen. It needs an audience. So I closed my eyes, lit the fire, and let them die unseen. The crackle of melting plastic and curling film was the closest thing to freedom I've felt since this all began. After that, I unplugged everything. No screens, no cameras, no reflections. I sat in the center of the house with nothing but a notebook and a pen. I didn't write, not right away. First, I had to remember who I was before all this. I wrote my name, my real name, said it out loud, over and over until it felt true, until it wasn't his voice saying it. The voice is quieter now, still there, sometimes whispering from the static of my memories, trying to twist my thoughts back into monologue. But it's weaker, because I'm not giving it space, not in my mind, not in my mirrors, not on the page. I haven't taken a photo in 3 days. Not even mentally. You know what I mean, that little habit we all have now. Framing moments. Capturing them in our heads for Instagram, TikTok, memory. That inner reflex that says, this would make a good post. I've shut it off. I live unrecorded. And I swear to you, things are changing. This morning, I woke up with sunlight on my face. Not the flickering hollow light that used to sneak through the cracks. Real sunlight. Warm. Silent. When I stood up and looked around, the house felt still. No photographs on the floor. No hum behind the walls. No red text in the mirror. Just me. And something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity. So now I'm here. Back at the beginning. Writing the last thing I'll ever say about this. And it's not for the camera. Not for the archive. It's for you. Because there's one last thing the lens fears. Not fire. Not silence. Not destruction. But something simpler. Something more powerful. Being forgotten. So here's what I'm asking you to do. If you've read this far, if the watcher has shown you its face, you have a choice. You can keep feeding it. Keep sharing it. Keep thinking about it. And you'll keep seeing it, dot. In reflections, dot. In corners, dot. In memory, dot. In dreams. Or, you can help me starve it. Right now. Here's how. 1. Close your eyes. 2. Picture the camera. 3. Then turn away. 4. And forget the image. Don't share the story. Don't screenshot it. Don't even save it. Erase it. And let it die with us. You might feel it resist. You might feel a twinge of fear that if you forget, it will win. That's the final lie. Because it only exists through attention. And we don't owe it anything. Not anymore. This is the final photo. I won't describe it. I won't look at it. I'm going to destroy it the moment I finish this sentence. So that when the last page turns, there is nothing left. Goodbye. I hope I never see you again.